Good morning.
Good afternoon.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. So do you want to start?
Yes, I guess, can you hear me? Or?
Loud and clear.
Perfect. Okay, it's a small room anyway, so we don't need too much. First, my name is Georges Sebastião, or just George is fine. I guess quite a few people probably know me because I speak probably about 100 times a year in various panels and conferences around the world, sometimes physical, sometimes virtually. I am Portuguese Canadian, so I was born in Portugal, and I moved to Montreal where I studied in Ottawa mathematics and spent the first years in business in North America. And about 28 years ago, I moved to the region. So obviously the region 20 years ago, or 28 years ago, was very different than it is today. There's a little white building that you barely see called the World Trade Center next to Emirates Towers. For many years, that was actually the tallest building in Dubai.
And the only building in Dubai.
Well, there was the Toyota building. There's, I guess, something used to be called the Holiday Inn, which became the Crown Plaza, and today it's known as, oh boy, it keeps changing name. It's on its third name now. And there was a bumpy road all the way to Abu Dhabi. So the biggest countries at that time were obviously Saudi, Kuwait, and Bahrain, which is something called Gulf Air, which is kind of a regional airline. There was no Emirates Airlines or Saudi and Kuwait Airways. So primarily I came as what we call technologists. So as a technology, we helped develop some of the early companies in software. And in the region at the time, the number 2 software company in the world was a company known as Computer Associates, or CA, which no longer exists because it's been bought by Broadcom. So Broadcom bought both CA and Symantec and created an immense, large technology company. This technology company today actually also focuses a lot on AI, so infrastructure that we're going to be talking about today. So after being in the region for 28 years, we also helped develop a local version of CA, ran cybersecurity company for over 10 years, basically outsourcing of managed services. So we did many projects across Africa and then the Middle East with a company known as ITS, which at that time was the largest outsourcing company in the region, belonging to Kuwait Finance House. And you can say in the last 7 to 8, I was also CTO for Huawei, which is known as a mobile company, but in reality is much more than that. Today, Huawei is a mobile network provider company. It has cloud that it offers as a white label to various telecom operators around the world, like Dutch Telecom, Telefonica in Latin America and other parts of the world, Orange in Africa for the French-speaking community. But in the last 8 years, we created something called EcoX, and EcoX is basically an incubator, accelerator for startup companies in technology that use some of the latest technology, and that can be blockchain, AI, IoT, cloud computing, cybersecurity, and so on. So today we're going to be talking, I guess, about some of these topics a little bit.
Got it. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hello. Hello. Okay, so I'm Logeshwaran, working as IT director for Plugin. So Plugin is a decentralized Oracle and NetDB ecosystem. Oh, actually.
It is on, but you might have to get it a bit closer.
Is it better now?
Yeah,
Better?
Also to the
So my journey is quite, turbulence right from the day one in my IT industry. I was into analytics for 12 years and then jumped into blockchain in 2016 timeframe, wherein Ethereum was quite new to the world, right? So then I found blockchain mentors was okay. I mean to say the less numbers in the LinkedIn, and I couldn't find right gurus. So then I started realizing, okay, it's time to start up the meetup community, and I formed a few in India. Like it went really well. We gained more traction. So thousands of blockchain enthusiasts have joined this meetup community. It went really well. Then I became one of the members in Indian Hyperledger Fabric forum. where I led many meetups and brought people to hackathons, conducted many such events. It went really fine. I started building apps like a blockchain as a service platform for Hyperledger Fabric, because basically during those period building that would take more time, right? Like 2 months, 3 months, as even the backend. So then I realized that's a potential. That's where we have potential to automate the process. So blockchain as a service platform we built, and it went really fine. And Hyperledger Fabric Forum invited me as a guest to talk about that. And slowly I jumped into public blockchain where Ethereum, Polygon, and all those blockchain I explored. Finally ended up with XDC ecosystem where I could see a real difference compared to other blockchains, right? So how community is collaborating together, in terms of discussing the pain point, how ecosystem partners are helping each other. So all those pieces I can see it here compared to other blockchains. So it's not like I'm being in XDC, I'm talking about XDC. I could see that really. And with respect to sustainability topic, it's like close to my heart. Reason I'm saying, in my current company, I'm working closely with my colleague on EcoDrive to reduce the carbon emissions, in the world. I mean, that was achievable because when Karthik told me this idea during hackathon, I found it very interesting, because every one of us is part of this carbon emission, right? You guys came in car and I came by car from Sharjah to Dubai. During this travel, we all know how much carbon is emitted through the car, right? So this idea is like how we can track that carbon which is emitted by car, and then calculate those carbon emission, create an NFT. This NFT later can be converted into carbon credits, and this can be sold to the secondary market, right? That's one of the brilliant idea. We took initiative, and project went really fine. It has not gone live, but we have seen it was welcomed by many events. And then recently we are working on another sustainability project called Tokenization. It's going to go live very soon, but it's all about agriculture ecosystem development problem. So these two products is very close to me because I strongly feel that whatever actions we are making, it is interconnected to the planet well-being. And we all know we are witnessing the climatic change, right? Everywhere, there is more rain. Now they are seeing the drought. Where there is less rain, they are seeing more floods. So it's like doing opposite, and everywhere we are seeing climatic change. So I'm happy to talk about the sustainability and renewable energy as well.
Well, actually, I believe as well sustainability is an extremely important element. When I was in Huawei and prior to that in ITS, we were helping building basically sustainable, efficient data centers. So in a data center, there's something known as the PUE, which is also known as the factor or quotient of efficiency of the data center. So most of the data centers today around the Middle East are anywhere from 1.5 to 2, which means they are not very efficient. So the closer that ratio is to 1, that means the more efficient it is. Now, how do you calculate the PUE? It means you take the total energy that is consumed by a data center, and you calculate by the amount of energy that is used for compute and storage and networking. So that means if it's 1.0, it means it's an extremely efficient data center. Very few data centers have reached 1.0. Most of them that are highly efficient are 1.1, 1.2. In the region, there's a few data centers that have focused on that. And the reason why they focused is by using a combination of things like solar technology, hydrogen, or others, or also using more efficient cooling methods. Now back to technology. So we were trying to build these efficient data centers, then something known as blockchain came around with Bitcoin, and then energy was not so important anymore. As you know, the way the protocol for Bitcoin is organized, every number of years, there's the halving, and the halving means you use more power to produce half of the Bitcoins that you used to produce before. So it means for the transactions and all that. So there has been an effort to make even Bitcoin more efficient, and there's actually been only primarily 2 solutions, or 3 today. One I would call the Lightning Network, to group many Bitcoin transactions into a single transaction. The other one is by using hydropower, or other sustainable energy mechanisms. So countries like El Salvador are using energy from, for example, the earth to generate efficient or hydropower to generate non-carbon emitting electricity. Now today there's other mechanisms that are as equivalent. So for example, UAE went from not mining any bitcoins to mining almost 10% of the bitcoins of the world. And the reason why they've been able to do that is they're actually using the nuclear plant. So they have basically free energy. So they brought highly efficient machines and immersive cooling. And in the middle of the desert, they're basically mining almost 10% of the Bitcoin. So that applies only to Bitcoin network. So then Ethereum came around. So Ethereum itself was a little bit more efficient than Bitcoin, but not that much more, only maybe 2 times more efficient. And then many other networks came about, some EVMs were more efficient, some using layer 0 protocols to make it more efficient. I guess DC is one of them, but there's Algorand and a few others that focus really on making things as efficient. And this applies not just to Bitcoin. So if we look at AI as a technology as well, it also consumes vast amounts of electricity, and it also produces massive amounts of heat. So you also need to extract this heat from the machines, so that is also not so efficient. So carbon footprint is a very important aspect to the things that we're doing today.
And when you talk about why, how they are generating this like data center, sustainable data center, right? But there is a concern with respect to ESG, like environmental, social, and governance, which plays a bigger role in sustainability, right? Like project. But if you closely look at the ESG metrics, you can find very few players are giving this score to the company, right? For example, MSCI, which is a top player in the market, and then Sustain Analytics, they are the second one, like which there are 10 to 15. You can easily count them. But with respect to the ESG, there are so many factors which are influencing the ESG score, and there is no correct formula which is being followed by all the companies. Like everybody is following different standards to derive this rating. So the point here is, through this ESG score, we cannot say that this company is doing better and this company is not doing better, like through the ratings. Because one company is giving the rating like a CCC to AAA, CCC being low and AAA being topmost, whereas other companies rating this like 0 to 100, right? And you cannot cover that number with the ratio. So the point here is, when we create this ESG score and by like 5 factors for environmental, like how well you are utilizing the water resource, how well you utilize the energy, and then whether you are generating the waste, if it is, how you are recycling the waste. Those comes under environmental, and then social, how well we are treating the employee, what is the business ethics for the etc., and then comes under governance. That is where the structure boards will comes under picture. So when we accumulate all these factors and then derive this rating, I'm not sure how this will give empowerment to the company. So what do you think about that?
Well, I think the most important aspect, I think, is education. It's probably the most important factor. So one is technology that contributes companies to be more efficient, but I think there has to be an education, and this education and transformation takes time. And the best example I can give is when I came first to the Middle East from Canada. Being in Canada, we already had blue boxes for many years, so we got used to when we had waste. We had one box for newspapers, one box for glasses. We did composting in the house. So when I arrived in the Middle East, says, "Where's the blue box?" And everybody looked at me like in a strange way. There was no such thing. Now, forward back 20-some years, today you see it's not yet universal across the Middle East, but you can see hotels and you can see specific organizations are making a very big effort to actually be compliant with ESG sustainability goals. So it means you need to actually do this education and this transformation. So on one side you have technology evolving very fast, but the other side is the behavior that people have. So people need to be part of that change element. And people change much more slowly than technology changes. So everything that you do in your day life impacts. Okay, do you take the car or you take the metro? Of course, the two have very different carbon footprints. So the easiest way is obviously to take your car or to take the taxi or the Uber, but metro, okay, maybe a little bit more walking, maybe a little bit more sweat, especially if it's July or August. But it makes quite a big difference when you have this overall impact. Now, when you have the population changing their behavior, when we have technology companies changing their behavior, especially today, people don't realize the impact. For example, when you go something like doing a Google search or doing a Chat GPT search, I mean, the carbon footprint of those requests are actually quite large. So there's a lot of work that still needs to be ahead.
Absolutely. And world is moving towards net zero by 2050 and at least 48% carbon reduction by 2030. While we said that people are, I mean, the companies are still trying to make use of this carbon emission as an excuse, and few top players are showing different data to the public, like greenwashing. I hope you all know about greenwashing, right? Just I'll give an example. I don't want to name the brand, but this car manufacturing unit, they have created a sensor. This sensor has been embedded in the car. This car, while they do a pollution inspection, right? Pollution inspection test, only during that time this sensor get activated and it will show right level of carbon emission in the dashboard. So obviously this car get passed, right? And after a while, it has been found and this manufacturing unit has been penalized with FT amount. But still, many big players are using this greenwashing technique and they are hiding actual factuals to the public and showing some different data, right? And which is actually not helping a government to reduce the carbon emission, because on one hand they are trying to control by doing some policy, some.
But I think these problems go beyond even just what one of the manufacturers do. It is also the carbon credit ecosystem itself is very different. And the way you measure that is today there's carbon credits that are worth maybe $15 or $20 per ton. There's other carbon credits that are only worth a few pennies. It's how the information was captured to actually calculate these carbon credits. However, there is many big efforts that are evolving to make a big change. So for example, one is to plant trees. So I have many colleagues that are in projects that implement worldwide implementation of tree planting to kind of remove the carbon. There's also marécage, which is like swampland. Swamps actually remove more carbon than actually does trees. And if you go to Abu Dhabi, you'll see next to Saadiyat Island a very big swampland that is contributing to that effort. So there's a lot of work that is being done to make things smaller. Now, one of the other topics that I think you have on your agenda is known as Depin, or Decentralized Physical Infrastructure. So I do think that by moving the computing infrastructure close to where the energy is, you also do a lot of savings. So there is an organization known as Premium Chain from Canada that is doing exactly that. So it's taking today energy like, for example, flare gas or unconnected wells, and moving generators to that energy that is actually being thrown away. Like when you see this flare gas burning at night in the desert, that is just pollution. So what you do is you convert this gas now to electricity by putting a generator next to that well, and then you also put the computing next to that. So you bring a container that has either async miners or it has GPUs, and is able to generate cloud service of AI or Bitcoin through a mining pool, and then be much more efficient. So what you're doing is you're taking something that is actually polluting the planet to actually creating value. So you're actually monetizing energy in a much more efficient way. Are we there yet? No, I think we still have, we're in a journey of many steps. So when we have taken a few of these steps, but there's still many steps to take.
Absolutely. So since you said about Depin, I have some experience with the Depin platform as well. Of course, a plugin Decentralization is one of the Depin, and they have storage. It comes under Depin, and I have my own experience where we all know, right? GPU is now hot in the market. GPU, like everybody's talking about GPU and quantum
Even
computing.
at that, there's a lot of work that is being done in the GPU market. Today, if you went to CES, you saw NVIDIA introduce the mini
Yes,
GPU.
40X.
So there is a movement towards making more lightweight AI engines. So the same way you have dApps, you also have AI microservices, which means instead of having the big centralized AI, you actually move the AI where it's close process. And by the way, this is actually being done on your phone. How many people here have, for example, an Android phone like Samsung? How many want to? So today, if you have one of the more recent Samsungs, there's a GPU inside that phone. So that means if you do language processing, like natural language processing or translation, the translation does not have to actually happen inside the data center. The translation in 15 or 30 languages can happen inside the phone. So that means you have a much more low carbon footprint to actually do the same amount of work. So all these small steps are actually making a very big difference. Now imagine if everybody started using this instead of their phones, instead of, for example, using Google Translate. So in Google Translate, although it's fast, it's not very efficient. You have to send all this data across the network, get it translated, send it back, and then play it back. So all these adds plus to the entire carbon footprint chain.
Absolutely, this will definitely empower every individual, right? Like not just a company, every individual can get benefit out of it. And of late, I got to know about, we all know large language models. After this AI invention, right now we have something called short language model. I'm not sure how many of you heard about it. So they are bringing some SLM, and which will help like mobiles. We can do all the processing in mobile itself. So that's a quite new.
There is also a very famous company known as Cerebras, which is 70% owned by G42 in Abu Dhabi. They're making very large GPUs, and the purpose of having these very large GPUs, it's much more efficient because everything is done in a single GPU rather than to synchronize across different machines. So I think many people are doing the right steps to make a lower carbon footprint as we progress. I think somebody's trying to warn us that we're almost out of time. We're in the Middle East. Time is not such an important asset. So I guess they're asking us to maybe summarize slowly.
Any questions maybe from the group?
Any questions from the floor? Maybe one question, two questions.
When we can see 100K again?
100K.
When Bitcoin 100K again?
Is that a carbon footprint question?
Yeah.
By Jan 20?
No, again. In progress.
Yeah, maybe in another 5 days. You have to wait.
Outside completely of this topic, but somewhere between now and next October, you'll probably see something between 100 and 150,000, give or take. So you just have to be patient. Inshallah.
Yeah, do your own research, please.
Yes. This is not financial advice.
So like mostly in industrial sectors, like they are mainly responsible for carbon footprints. But entire like carbon footprints like is converted to cars and different things. But actually we are not targeting whatever we're supposed to target to like reduce our carbon footprints. The mines mostly like in the industrial sector and industrial commercial use of like vehicles and all these things. Personal use of vehicles like we don't like produce a lot of actually like we don't even need any electric cars, and electric car is like more I don't think so it's a sustainable like for planet or something. Even like a diesel cars or like a petrol cars also kind of same like but in the long run maybe like it will more sustainable, but currently it's not actually sustainable. I don't think so. But it's still like as you mentioned, like, when we are searching in ChatGPT, like it's also we are it is like a data center running by carbon footprints, and this is actually the awareness regarding using Google or ChatGPT. Like we are actually putting a lot of carbon footprints, and regarding actually you mentioned about the like suppose carbon tax and
being bought.
Mostly tax or anything like regarding any collection of tax or any sort of things. It's like a hit, but it's for public. Like mostly we have to pay. Like it's supposed to, the ground people have to pay. The companies or whatever. Like if you put any carbon taxes on companies, and some agencies will like take those taxes, collect those taxes, and then they will not use it for more sustainable things. But the thing is that the actual consumer will be like hit by these carbon taxes. So, what actually the solution to make actual sustainability? Like it's not about diverting sustainability to somewhere else. Instead of like we are targeting some like suppose sci-fi sustainability and actual sustainability. Like
So I do believe with you that sometimes we are not necessarily targeting the biggest problems. I'll give you one example. One of the biggest producers of carbon footprint is cows. So, you know, which means, okay, how you reduce that carbon footprint? Either we become all vegetarian, which may not be necessarily realistic, but if we change a bit of our habits on either how cows get raised, on what kind of food we eat, how we dress, what kind of clothes, all of these have a big impact overall on the carbon footprint. So the industrial aspect has a very important element. There's a few colleagues of mine, one of them are doing something called UCO, which is used cooking oil. So they're collecting oil from restaurants and others to turn it into recycled low carbon footprint oil. And by the way, today when you actually take Emirates Airlines airplane, part of that fuel is actually used cooking oil. So you're actually using a little bit of carbon fries as part of the flying process. So I think there's a lot of good steps being taken, but it's all about patience and it's about motivation for all these industrial organizations to make the right change. And the way you do it is by monetizing them, incentivize them. Because if they see that it's not viable for them, of course they'll make the wrong decision.
The thing is that like one suppose mothership, one mothership like giant, suppose one big mothership can actually produce something around 1 million cars of like a carbon footprint equal carbon footprint like one mothership. So mostly like a trade is totally is like a heavily like it is impacted for carbon footprint. So
But things are changing. Like for example, today now you have electrical buses. Soon you're going to have more hydrogen vehicles. So it's not just about electrical vehicles. It's a combination of technologies that actually make a difference, not one single technology.
And I think just to double down on your point, John, which is I think people need to be motivated to want to do it, right? They have to be motivated to want to do it. And I think it's again like when people come into Web3, why do so many people come into Web3? The first reason is we want to make more money, right? And I think with sustainability, the awareness is fantastic that we've got that now. And now it's about the next stage. But listen, let's please get, do you want to say one last thing before
That can be done through circular economy. We all know, right? Like reuse, recycle, and then refurbish. And one country, they are implementing this process where they are trying to reduce the manufacturing of washing machine and renting this washing machine as a product, as a service, right, to the household. And as and when they want, they will go and just refurbish, take that machine, put another machine and collect the rent from the household. That's one best example. And in my view, sustainability is not just a choice that we should make. It's like a legacy we are going to leave for our generation. So if we all work together, because it's every individual responsibility, not like we cannot complain the company or we cannot complain ourselves. Like every one of us should ask ourselves and work together to create this world like not just survive but thrives. That's my.
And sometimes, one last one, I know we're way out of time, is one of the projects that I'm helping now for almost 1 year. It's actually a sweet potato project. It's an agri-tech project. You're going to say, okay, how does sweet potatoes change the carbon footprint? I'll give you a very short version instead of a long one. So you take 100 acres of land and you make sweet potato. Very easy to make. You only need a bit of water, a bit of sun, a bit of land. But it's what happens after that makes a difference. So from that sweet potato, You have starch, so starch creates food. There is the liquid part of the potato, which is 30–40% versus the 60% of the starch. This feeds either animals, so it could be pigs, which is not important here, but cows are. But it can also feed fish, tilapia in this case. So you're actually making green fish to some extent, or because tilapia is also a fish that cleans the water. So that water is used by the plant. So you also are making biofuel. So you're taking the sweet potato, which is the sugar, you're fermenting it, and you're making ethanol, which is a much more clean fuel. You're making bioplastic, which means forks, knives, plates from the same starch. You're making also biopaper, so instead of killing or cutting down trees, you're actually using starch to make paper. So, and the interesting aspect is these are exactly what you mentioned. Is each one is an ecosystem. So the plant that takes the sweet potato, makes electricity, makes clean water and all that, is all sustainable. It does not need any more electricity from the grid to function. So the idea is you have created a series of mini ecosystems that feed each other in a circular economy, and at the same time generate value for the local economy. So bioplastic for the local people, biopaper, biofuel, not in massive industrial quantity, but in smaller ones that get automatically consumed as they're being created.
Love that, love that. What an interesting, insightful conversation, wasn't it? Guys, can we please give Mr. Logoswan a check and clap? Thank you so much for coming on. And George, please stay with us.
It's a pleasure. Okay.
But let's give George a clap as well, please. Let's give George a clap. So guys, we're going to continue on this narrative of sustainability. Yes, fantastic. Thank you so much. We're going to continue on this narrative of sustainability. I've actually been networking, and in between the breaks, please network, please get to know each other as well. And I've spoken to the game company. What these guys are building is genuinely super, super exciting. They've made a lot of growth in the last few months. I'm really interested actually to hear what these guys are going to talk about. We've got the head of their blockchain coming up to talk, Mr. Parsa, and we're talking about climate action, blockchain innovation for a resilient future. So please, the stage is yours. Please set yourself up with a microphone. Yes, absolutely. Let's give him a quick clap. Thank you so much. I think just while we're talking about, just while you're getting set up, maybe we can talk a little bit on the sustainability thing. I think it is interesting how you've got these little pockets of like projects coming together, doing all sorts of different. You mentioned, did you mention, was it you that mentioned hydrogen? Maybe it was yourself, right? And it's super, super interesting, isn't it?
Well, I'll give you the example where hydrogen is very important. We're doing a project with Norway that is already live, which is a container, the container is actually just a battery. So, for example, let's assume you're doing solar panels. Solar panels are nice, but there is a problem. The problem is the electricity that is produced by solar panels is only produced 8 or 10 hours a day. At night, there is no solar. So what you do is the excess solar, you can produce hydrogen, and at night you burn the hydrogen, which is carbon neutral.
So during the day you've got solar,
and at night you have hydrogen. So it means now you have a complete ecosystem that works 24 hours a day instead of just 8 hours a day.
That's very smart.
So
it's the same land, but you've got double the output almost.
And today you have actually what it's called hydrogen cars. In the early days, the way hydrogen engines were being created in cars was there was a big tank in the back of the trunk. In Canada, this existed 35, 40 years ago. So it means you lose about half of your trunk. So the hydrogen was being produced in central plants. But today now you have engines that are actually producing hydrogen inside the engine. Now, how are they doing that? They're actually generating electricity. That electricity is doing the breaking of the atoms of water. So what we're doing is you're putting a bit of fuel, but you're also putting water as the fuel. So it's generating.
You're almost making fuel out of the fuel.
You're making fuel as you need. So it's generating hydrogen, and then it's burning that hydrogen.
Amazing.
So it makes a much more self-sufficient, very close loop cycle, auto-sufficient engine.
I love that. Guys, I'm going to get off stage, otherwise I could keep talking. But Mr. Parsa, welcome. Are you all good? You're good to go?
Yeah.
Welcome
That's
to the
good.
stage. I'll let you guys have a great 20-minute convo, and I'll see you guys
Sure.
shortly. Cheers.
Electronics
Give them a clap
first.
before we get started, guys.
Introduce yourself, I guess.
Yeah, sure. I'm Parsa Bahmani. I started my journey in blockchain space back in 2013. After 2 years of studying and researching about Bitcoin concept, blockchain fundamentals, after introduction of Solidity by Ethereum Foundation in 2016, I started and focused on blockchain programming. Before